Hello everyone, my name is Bibin Abram and in today's video we are going to talk about applications of Gauss law, and this is the second video of applications of Gauss law. So let's get started. So before we start this video, we have to do a quick recap of what Gauss law was. So Gauss law stated that the net flux that is passing through any closed surface can be given as 1 upon epsilon naught times the net charge that is enclosed inside that closed figure. That means, for example, if I have a positive charge q, right, and that is enclosed inside a closed figure, right, let's say it's enclosed inside a sphere, right, and normally we call this closed figure as the Gaussian surface, right. So this is your Gaussian surface, and obviously as there is this plus q charge, the electric field lines from this plus q charge will be going out in every possible direction, right, or in other words the flux will be passing out of your Gaussian surface. Is that a yes or no? Right, great. So if that is the case, then according to Gauss law you can write integration over a closed surface, that is integration over the Gaussian surface, the net flux, that is E dot dA, right, flux you can find out by E dot dA, right, is simply given as 1 upon epsilon naught times the net charge that is inside your Gaussian surface, right, the net charge that is inside the closed figure. So this is what your Gauss law in mathematical terms, right. I hope that is understandable. We have already done one application of Gauss law in which we talked about a spherical shell. We talked about electric field due to a spherically charged shell at different points. One, we took a point inside the spherical shell, the charged spherical shell, one on the surface, and one which is like far away from the spherical shell. So we have already done the first application. Let's move on to the second application of Gauss law, that is electric field at a point due to infinitely large line charge distribution. So basically you guys can see here I have a infinitely large line charge distribution. So let me assume I have a line, right, and this line is infinitely large. We have to assume it's say I cannot make infinitely large line here, right, so I have just made this line, right, and you guys can see it is charged, right, so positive charge is there. I hope you guys can understand that, right. So because of this infinitely large line charge, I have to find out electric field at some point. Let's say this is the point where I'm supposed to find out my electric field, right. Let me call this point P. So at point P I have to find out electric field because of this infinitely large line charge, right. So basically what I'm supposed to do, right, the first step that we talked about is we have to make a Gaussian surface, right. Now Gaussian surface also have to make the Gaussian surface in such a way that it should contain my point P. Okay, so first it should be a closed surface. That means I have to make a 3D figure, right. So okay, we have to see what figure should I choose. Okay, so the best that I can come up with is a cylinder, because cylinder will cover all of my charge. So I'm going to make a cylinder here such that the cylinder is going to take my point P inside the Gaussian surface, right. So I have made a finite cylinder. I have not made a infinite cylinder, I have made a finite cylinder. So you guys can see this is my cylinder and this is my Gaussian surface. So that cylinder is including my point P, right. I hope you guys can understand, right. And let's say the length of the cylinder is some L. Let me say the length of the cylinder is some L, right. I hope that is understood. So this is my Gaussian surface. Let me call it Gaussian surface. Alright, the first part of the problem is done. I have made my Gaussian surface, right, and let me say this Gaussian surface is some S. Okay, so this entire Gaussian surface S, I can actually see it is made up of three parts. One is this circular part, right, this is my second circular part, and third part is the curved one, the curved path. Can you guys see my Gaussian surface is actually made up of three parts. Let me call it, this part is my surface 1, the curved part is my surface 2, and again the circular part is again the surface 3. So I have divided my entire Gaussian surface into three different parts. I hope you guys can understand, right? Okay, so after that I have to talk about a small area, just like we did in the case of, you know, spherical shell. I have to assume a small area here also, right? So I'm going to assume a very small area, right? Let's say I assume a very small area here for my surface S2, for my surface S1, and for my surface S3, right? I can assume small area here also, I can assume small area here also, because as I have divided my, you know, Gaussian surface into three different parts, I can have to assume small area along that surfaces, right? So let's first write the Gauss law, right? So according to Gauss law, I can write integration over a closed surface, right? And this time my Gaussian surface, let me say this is S as my Gaussian surface, right? Gaussian surface, let me call this S. S has been divided into S1, that is the circular part, S2, that is the curved part, S3, again back to my circular part, right? So I can write it integration over the closed surface S. I can write E dot dA is equals to the net charge that is enclosed divided by epsilon naught. I hope that is understandable. Yes, is that understandable? Yes, great. So again I can divide my S into three different parts. So let me just divide it. This is divided into S1, that is E dot dA. S1 is my, you know, the first circular part, plus it is divided into S2, which is the curved part, E dot dA, right? Plus I can divide it into third, that is again the circular part, that is E dot dA. So I have divided my S into three different parts, and that's why the closed sign is now no more closed, because I have divided into one circular part, then the curved part, and then again the circular part, right? I hope that is understandable, right? Great. So let's go back to the small area that we talked about, right? So let's talk about the S1, the small area S1. So I can very nicely see for this S1, the area vector will be in that direction, dA vector will be in that direction, right? Will be in that direction. I hope you guys can understand, right? But I can see, because the positive charges are here, so obviously my electric field will be in the upward direction. Is that a yes or no? Right? I'm sure you guys can agree with me. The electric field will be in the upward direction. That is like, because obviously my charges are here, because of charges electric field will be going in the upward or the back in the downward direction. But I can see for that area vector electric field is going in the upward direction. Is that a yes or no? Great. Okay, let's talk about S2 surface, right? So for S2 surface, area vector is in that direction, right? Again, if I talk about the electric field is also in that direction, because obviously the positive charge here, right? So electric field will be in the upward direction. I hope you guys can see that, right? So my electric field is also in that direction, right? So you guys can see in the first case, the angle between the area vector and the electric field is 90 degree, right? But here the angle is 0 degree, right? Great. Let's talk about S3 surface, right? So for S3 surface, area vector is in this direction, right? That means area vector is in this direction. So I hope that you guys can understand that, right? But again, because of the positive charge, electric field will be in the upward direction, right? Just as it was in the first case. I hope that is understandable, right? So I can write it, I can draw it. Electric field is in the upward direction, right? I hope you guys can see. Let me make different. Okay, yes, you guys can see that electric field and the area vector, right? I hope you guys can see now, right? Yes, so this time the angle between them is 90 degree. I hope you guys can see. Is that a yes or no? Right? Okay, great. I got the three. So in the first case, the angle between electric field and area vector is 90. In the second case, that is the curved part, the angle between them is 0. In the third part, that is the circular part, again S3, the angle between them is 90 degree, right? Great. So let's apply that here, right? So in the first case I can write that is the angle between them is EDA cos of, angle between them is 90 degree, right? So I can write it 90 degree, right? Plus This is S1. Let's talk about S2. EDA cos of, the angle between them is 0, right? So you will write cos of 0. Let's talk about the third one, that is S3. EDA cos of, the angle between them is 90, right? So I can write it cos 90, and that is equals to Q total, that is enclosed inside your closed Gaussian surface, that is your cylinder, right, divided by epsilon. So we have to talk about that. We will talk about that. Okay, great. So here you guys can see cos of 90 degree is 0. Is that yes or no, right? Cos 90 is 0. So obviously if that is 0, this term will be going to 0. Very similarly, this term will also go to 0. So you will be left with cos of 0 is actually 1, right? So this term will, the S2 surface is the only term that is going to survive, right? So you will be left with S2 EDA, and that is equal to total charge that is enclosed inside your cylinder divided by epsilon naught. Now this is the, now we have to find out the net charge that is inside the cylinder, right? But by seeing this figure, right, by seeing this figure, I can never figure out how much is this much charge, right? I cannot figure out how much is this much charge, right? So in order to answer that question, I'm going to introduce something new, right? I'm going to introduce a term known as lambda, right? This lambda is defined as charge per unit length, right? So I will bring a new term, that is lambda, where lambda is defined as charge per unit length, right? That means per unit length how much charge there it is, right? So I can say, I can argue for unit length, I'm going to use unitary method, right? For unit length, lambda charge is there, right? For unit length, lambda charge is there. So you guys can see I have to talk about L length. I have to talk about, you guys can see, I have to talk about L length, right? So I have to find out how much charge is there in this L length. I have to find out how much charge is there in this L length, right? So if I know that for unit length lambda charge is there, so I can say, I can write for L length lambda times of L charge will be there. Is that understandable? For unit length, that means for one length lambda charge was there. For L length, lambda into L charge is there. I hope that is understandable. Is that understandable to everyone? Yes or no? So it is very similar. It is very similar that I want one pen. Let's say for 1 rupees you can get 10 pens, right? For 1 rupees you can get 10 pens. If you want to buy, if you have 10 rupees, you will get 100 pens. That is 10 into 10, right? I hope that is understandable, right? Great. So lambda times of L charge is there, right? So I can write it here. So this thing, I'm writing it here, that integration over S2 EDA is equal, net charge is actually lambda times of L divided by epsilon naught, right? Now electric field is a constant quantity, right? This will come because obviously at every point they are equal distance, right? This distance is equal, this distance is equal, so they are equal distance from all the curved part, right? So electric field is going to be constant throughout that curved part, right? Okay, so I can write it, so I can take my electric field out of the integration, right? So I can write here E integration over your S2 surface dA is equals to lambda times of L epsilon naught, right? So your S2, you have to understand, your S2 is the curved part. It's actually the curved part of your cylinder. Yes or no? It is the curved part, right? This S2 is the curved part, or I should say the curved surface area of a cylinder. So what is the curved surface area of a cylinder? Yes, the CSA, that is the curved surface area of a cylinder, is 2 pi r h, right? Where h is the height, or I should say L or the length, right? In this case it is the length, right? So I can write it CSA to be 2 pi r multiplied by L, right? R क्या है आपका? R is actually the radius of the circular part, right? I hope that is understandable. Is that a yes or no? Right? Okay, great. So I can write it over here. This will be equal to E multiplied by the curved surface area of the cylinder, that is 2 pi r. R is the radius of the circular part multiplied by the length of the cylinder, right? And that is equal to lambda times of L upon epsilon naught. Is that a yes or no? Right? I hope that is understandable. Great, right? Okay, so your L will be cancelled out with the L, right? Great. And you'll be left with E is equals to lambda times of 2 pi r epsilon naught, right? This is the electric field, and obviously electric field is going outward. It is going outward. Direction is always going, you guys can see electric field is going outward. It is going outward, right? So direction is outward, right? I hope you guys can understand that. Is that understandable to everyone? Yes? Great, great. So if that is understandable, let's move to the third part of the application, right? The third application of Gauss law is electric field at a point due to infinitely large sheet of charge, right? So you guys can see this time I have a sheet charge. This is a sheet charge, right? And this is infinitely large. It is very large, right? In this direction and also in this direction, right? It's very large, but you guys can see it is finite. In my whiteboard it is finite, but you have to assume it's infinitely large, right? So because of this infinitely large sheet charge, I'm supposed to find out electric field, let's say at some point here, P. I'm supposed to find out electric field at P, right? So how I'm supposed to do that, right? Again, the first step is you have to draw the Gaussian surface, right? And you have to draw the Gaussian surface in such way that it should include my P point, right? Any ideas? Yes, I have one idea. I have to draw a cylinder, right? Again I have to draw a cylinder, right? Let me draw a cylinder, and that cylinder should include my point P. Great. So let me draw a cylinder. So let's say this is my cylinder, and this cylinder is including my point P. I hope you guys can see that. Cylinder is going backward. Great, great. So here is my cylinder. Let me just draw it from different so that you guys can see that. Yes, so here is my Gaussian surface. Let me say this is great. So I hope you guys can see that. So this is my Gaussian surface which has my point P, right? It has my point P. This is my Gaussian surface, and let me call it S. And again I can divide this surface into three parts, right? So the first surface, let me call it S1 part, right? The second surface, the curved part, let me call it S2 part, and the third surface is my S3 part. First is S1, second is S2, third is S3 part. This first and the third part is identical. They are cylindrical, they are actually circular, right? Because S1 and S2 will have the same area, right? Very similarly, you guys can see there is a mid circle, right? There is a mid circle. This mid circle is also of the same area, right? So I can very nicely write that area of one thing. I can write here area of S1 is actually equals to area of S3, right? Because both the areas are same. I hope you guys can see that, right? Is that understandable to everyone? Great. Okay, now let me write the Gauss law here, right? So according to Gauss law, it's very simple. I can write it. According to Gauss law, I can write integration over a closed surface. Let me call this surface S, right? E dot dA will be equal to the net charge that is enclosed inside your Gaussian surface divided by epsilon naught. Is that a yes or no? Great. Again, with the help of division, I can actually divide it into three parts, right? Just we did it in the previous case, right? I can divide it into three parts. That is S1 part, that is E dot dA, right? Plus the second part S2 part, that is the curved part, right, that is E dot dA, and then the third part, that is again the circular one, right, E dot dA, and that is equal to the net charge that is enclosed inside your closed Gaussian surface divided by epsilon naught, right? Great. Okay, so again I'm going to talk about, we are going to talk about small areas in all the three areas, right? For S1 surface, I can take a small area, right? So the area vector will be in this direction, right? And what about the electric field? As you guys can see, this is the sheet charge, right? Charge is here, so can I say electric field is also in that direction? I hope you guys can understand, right? Electric field will be in that direction only, right? I hope you guys can see that. Yes, great. So I can write electric field is in that direction, right? So angle between them, theta, is 0 in the case of S1 figure, right? I hope you guys can see that. Okay, let's talk about S2 surface. Let's take any point, any small area at the surface of S2, right? So for S2, I can see area vector will be in that direction, that is upward, right? dA will be upward direction, right? Okay, what about the electric field, right? So obviously again you guys can see your charges are here, electric field will be in that direction, right? It will be in that direction. I hope you guys can see that, right? That means my electric field will be in this direction, right? The angle between them is 90 degree. Theta is 90 for your surface 2. I hope you guys can see that, right? Let's talk about the third surface, right? For the third surface, I can talk about a small area vector, right? Great. And I can see my area vector will be in that direction. Great. And what about the electric field? Electric field, again you guys can see all the positive charge are there. That means electric field will be in that direction, right? So I can write, so basically it will be in that direction, right? So I can talk about electric field here. So electric field will be in that direction. That means again the angle theta is 0 in the case of your S3 figure, right? I hope you guys can understand that. Is that a yes or no, right? Great. Okay, if you guys can understand that, then let's try to solve this further, right? So I can see for S1 EDA. Okay, cos of, for S1 you guys can see the angle is theta, that is 0, right? So I can write it EDA cos of 0. Great. Plus, okay, for S2 I can write EDA cos of, you guys can see for S2 angle is 90 degree, right? So I have to write it cos of 90 degree. Plus for S3 I can see the angle is 0 degree again, right? So I have to write plus integration S3 EDA cos of 0 degree, and that is equals to the net charge that is inside your Gaussian surface divided by epsilon naught. I hope that is understandable, right? So very nicely I can see this term will be 0 because cos 90 is 0. So the middle term is 0. I'm only left with, yes, I'm left with S1 EDA plus S3 EDA, right? And that is equals to Q total upon epsilon naught, right? Okay, so I have to talk about how much charge is enclosed inside my Gaussian surface, right? So you guys can see this is my Gaussian surface, so I don't know how much charge is enclosed inside that Gaussian surface, right? So this time, for example, in the previous time I talked about a term called lambda. Lambda was your charge per unit length, right? But this time I cannot talk about length because there is an area involved, right? So this time I'm going to introduce a new term, and I'm going to call that term sigma. I'm going to call that term sigma. This is sigma, you call it sigma, right? Sigma, it's a Greek word, right? So sigma is defined for charge per unit area, right? As previously it was lambda, that was charge per unit length. This time I'm going to introduce a term sigma, which means charge per unit area, right? What does that mean? For a unit area, sigma charge is there, right? So you guys can see over here in the diagram, right? This much charge I have to talk about, this much area charge I have to talk about, right? Is that a yes or no? And you have to see the area is same as the S1 area is same as the S3 area. So we have already written in the in the starting of the this exercise that area of S1 is same as area of S3, right? And let me say this particular area, the small area, and let me say that area is S, right? I hope you guys can understand, right? So this area is S. So now you have to understand here that for unit area, you have to understand, for unit area sigma is the charge. For unit area sigma is the charge. That means for S area S sigma will be the charge. Yes or no? S sigma will be the charge. I hope that is understandable to everyone. So for unit area sigma is the charge. So for S area S sigma will be the charge. It is the same example. If you have for 1 rupees you will get 10 pence, that means for 10 rupees you will get 100 pence, right? 10 multiplied by 10, right? I hope that is understandable, right? Very similarly, for unit area you get sigma charge. So for S area you will get S times of sigma charge. Is that understandable to everyone, right? I hope that is understandable, right? Great. So I can see for this particular this particular area has sigma times of S charge, right? Sigma times of S charge. I hope you guys can see that, right? Okay, great. So if that is understandable, I'm going to write this here, solve it here. That is, for integration S1 I can write EDA plus integration S3 over S3, this is EDA, is equals to, this time this is sigma times of S divided by epsilon naught. I hope that is understandable, right? Great. So the electric field will come out because it's a constant. So integration over dA for S1 area plus again integration will, so again electric field will come out. This will integration over S3 area, right? And this equals sigma S upon epsilon naught, right? So this will be E multiplied by, see, integration over dA area, you will get S1 area. Yes or no? The S1 area plus E multiplied by integration over S3 area, this is S3 area, right, is equal to sigma times of S upon epsilon naught, right? I hope you guys can understand that, right? Now in the starting of the video we said that area of S1 is same as area of S3 is same as area of S, right? All the areas are same. That means I can write 2 times of E of S is equals to sigma S upon epsilon naught. I hope you guys can see, right? S and S will cancel out. You're left with E is equal to sigma upon 2 epsilon naught, and obviously the direction will be normally outward, right? Obviously you can see electric field is normally outward, right? It is going normally outward in that direction, right? Yes, electric field is going normally outward. I hope you guys can understand that, right? So the final answer is E is equals to sigma upon 2 epsilon naught and normally outward. This is for a infinitely charged sheet, infinitely long charge sheet. The answer for electric field at any point P is sigma upon 2 epsilon naught. I hope that is understandable, right? So that's all for today, right? I hope you understood the video. If you have any doubt, you can ask me in the comment section. I hope all of you are doing good. Thank you and have a nice day.